So if I'm a patient that goes in and I'm not really displaying all the things of sepsis in triage, I get sent out to the waiting room. My mortality rate has gone up to 30 or 40% just while I'm sitting there. And that's the thing we're trying to solve. Our unique selling proposition is we're capturing that patient in triage where all the other tools are really post-admission into ED.
Everyone, it's Arick Weirson back with another episode of your favorite podcast, Leverage Storytelling, presented by Tunheim. Today I have Tom Burke from Vail Scientific on the show. Tom, thanks for coming on.
My pleasure. Thanks for the invitation.
Tom, so today we're here to talk about Vail Scientific, but obviously Vail Scientific means we're going to talk about sepsis.
Yes.
And sepsis, I think many people have heard of sepsis. And strangely, it's such a pervasive malady in the U.S. healthcare system, in fact, in the global healthcare system, yet it's not so well understood by lots of people. Why don't we just level set and tell everyone what sepsis is, just so we can talk about it?
Sure. So sepsis is basically a blood disease that gets out of control, starts impacting organs. The mortality rate for sepsis is very high. It's very difficult to identify sepsis patients. That's one of the bigger problems. That's the problem we're trying to solve.
Particularly when they're still alive, right?
Yes, that's certainly the goal. Yes, which is there's.
But I'm not kidding, though, right? I mean, isn't the big issue with sepsis that to get 100% determination, almost always it's after the person has passed, right?
Yes, and the truth is, most sepsis diagnostic. Or diagnosis rather by physicians is really done several days after treatment. So why is that? It's because of the various tests. These patients are very difficult to identify. In the US alone, and this is dated, the data, there's 350,000 people a year that die from sepsis. Yet, very few people know about it. Very few people know how impactful this is and how many people are dying every year because of this. So that's what we're about at Vail. We're trying to help identify these patients a lot earlier in their journey as a patient.
Now, sepsis is often associated with, I know that it can be acquired in many different situations, but
Yep.
It's oftentimes associated with healthcare or hospital-acquired diseases, right?
Yes, I mean, certainly people that are in the hospital can get sepsis, but actually the number one cause of sepsis is a UTI. But you can get sepsis from anything.
This is a podcast obviously dedicated to the art, or I like to say more and more the science of storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
But let's just talk about, if sepsis is so pervasive and it is such a big killer,
Mm-hmm.
why is it still so unfamiliar to most Americans?
That's a good question. I don't necessarily have the answer to that, but what I will say is there's a lot of folks that I run across that have a loved one or someone that they knew that got affected by this, many of whom have a very sad story about their friend or their family member dying. One of the other problems that our principal investigators had noted in one of our studies is there are these patients that they call patients who were otherwise masquerading as healthy. They're really difficult to identify, and they might have a fever, but or they might not be feeling good, but it's not really clear what's going on. Progression of the disease, which this is really scary. The progression of the disease is mortality goes up by 8% for every hour that a patient goes untreated. So if I'm a patient that goes in and I'm not really displaying all the things of sepsis in triage, I get sent out to the waiting room. My mortality rate has gone up to 30 or 40% just while I'm sitting there. And that's the thing we're trying to solve, is identify that patient actually when they're in triage.
So, Tom, let's press pause on that, and and we're going to talk about Vail in a second.
Mm-hmm.
But let's first talk about you and your background, and then how did that dovetail into what is now Vail Scientific?
Yeah. Well, I spent the better part of my life in pharma. Actually worked for a company that was local here in Minneapolis, Upster Smith. When I started there, it was a really tiny little company, and I was fortunate enough to grow with the company over the years. I was there 30 plus years. My last role there was as chief operating officer. I decided in 2014 to move on and go back to kind of the roots of small startup, because I really liked that part of it when we were really small and growing. And then got involved with a couple of gentlemen that were a little bit more on the diagnostic side. They had a number of experiences in the big companies, Medtronic and St. Jude and others like that. But they had gone into the startup world. So how we started it, which might be your question, we literally got together as a group and with a blank canvas and said, what problem can we solve that isn't solved for today? And after our research, we landed on, hey, sepsis is really a problem. And the big problem is trying to identify these patients as early as possible. We landed on this molecule that we are looking for called nitric oxide. Nitric oxide is it's very indicative of disease, very indicative of infection, but it's extremely difficult to measure. If you were to take a blood sample of someone, you could not run it to a lab fast enough to test for it because its half-life is seconds in the blood. So it's very difficult to measure. We landed on exhaled breath. In a gaseous form, it's stable. And so we were able to monitor nitric oxide and look at what are some other non-invasive vital signs that we could maybe tie into an algorithm along with nitric oxide to help predict better for a patient. And the goal was, let's find something that's non-invasive, meaning you don't have to poke or prod someone, you don't have to take blood from them, but you can identify their risk of sepsis very early in their journey.
The vision, I guess, for Vail Scientific is there's a moment in time in the future where someone comes into an ER, and as part of that initial triage, someone's basically having them breathe into a gun or some sort of contraption, and within minutes they get a reading or even faster about the likelihood of sepsis, right?
Yes, exactly.
And that would enable treatment to start right away, which then brings down, as you were saying earlier, that percent mortality increase potential.
That's the goal. You're right. What we're not saying is we are the definitive diagnostic for sepsis. What we are saying is we want to identify patients that are at risk for sepsis, get them back into the ED as quickly as possible. Then it's a doctor's call. I'm looking at this patient, I'm seeing these various vitals, and I'm going to make a determination either to treat now or do further tests. But I'm doing those tests 3 or 4 hours earlier than I might have otherwise with this patient because no one saw that they are at risk for sepsis. Down the road, yes, we envision this being more forward in the field, if you will. So think of urgent cares. Think of nursing homes. Going back to UTIs, if that's the number one cause of sepsis, that's a very common problem in nursing homes. So if you could have this device in the nursing home and take a measure, that patient coming into the ED, you would already know this is someone that's at risk. So we're gonna treat them like the heart attack victim. We're gonna get them right back into the ED and get on them right away.
Now you've been sort of under the radar for a while.
Yes.
And now you're starting to tell people more about your story, and I assume that's probably somewhat to some degree a function of the fact that you're out raising money now.
Yes.
But I know that Exit 156 Capital was one of the early investors in Vail. Right?
Yes.
I know Mike Nathan was on this podcast.
Yes.
He did mention Vail in passing, although along with the multiple other companies that he's invested in, either through 156 or by himself personally or with his family. But what was the connection with 156? How did he take an interest? How did Mike Nathan and his co-investors take an interest in the company?
Originally, when we were raising money back a few years ago, I had reached out to Mike because I knew him personally and told him about what we're doing. And as you know, Mike, he was very excited about this. He got very enthusiastic about it. He, along with a number of other of his colleagues, had invested into Vail at that time. Since then, they formed Exit 156, and Exit 156 is our lead investor in this round. And they've been really great partners.
So walk me through exactly, how Vail is positioning itself in the marketplace. I mean, are there other companies that are pursuing similar technologies? Are you sort of heads and shoulders above the competition, or how would you assess sort of the competitive landscape?
First of all, we're non-invasive, so that's helpful. Secondly, it's quick. So within 2 minutes, you have your read on this patient.
2 minutes.
2 minutes.
Yes. And what is the likelihood that it's accurate? How do you talk about that?
So in this world, we talk about sensitivity and specificity. So
Okay.
Sensitivity is how well am I capturing all the people that have sepsis, and then specificity is of those people I captured, what percent of those patients actually have the disease. And so what we are focused on, and what our medical advisors have suggested to us to be focused on, is sensitivity, meaning let's make sure we capture everyone that's at risk, and then we can do further tests to determine if they are, in this case, a false positive or not. So our tests thus far, the clinical trials that we have done, have shown sensitivity of anywhere from 80 to as high as 90%. So that's great. There's a number of new technology that has come out for identifying sepsis. However, all of that is done post-admission into the ED, and all of them require a blood test.
So there's no one else really in that competitive space of the initial triage.
Of triage, correct. That's correct.
That's your unique selling proposition.
And so, yeah, our unique selling proposition is we're capturing that patient in triage, where all the other tools are really post-admission into ED.
Yeah. So you're the sharp end of the spear.
Exactly. Yes, exactly.
All right. Now let's talk about the company. So how the company's based here in Minnesota,
Yes.
right? You're right now sort of concluding, I guess, would be your Series A, right?
Yes.
And basically your goal probably is, based on what you were telling me before we got to the podcast, that more than likely that A is going to take you through your sort of final FDA clearance, right?
Correct. Yep. That is the goal with the money we're raising now. We have done, to date, 3 clinical trials. And so we are looking at really the pivotal trial, and what are the steps leading up to that pivotal trial that we will then submit to the agency. And so that time frame would be something in the neighborhood of about 2 years from now till FDA clearance. And there's a lot of factors that can change.
So the idea of this Series A is to get you to that point.
Yes.
And then after that, I mean, I guess no one ever has a crystal ball, but I mean, would you say that most likely your goal is not to go on full bore commercialization, or you never know?
Well, you don't know. As we look at this, we are looking at 3 different avenues at the point of FDA clearance. So one is a partnership, someone that's already in this space and they want to add this to their list of things that they're going into hospitals selling. That's an option. There's an option of just a buyout from
A strategic exit.
A strategic exit. Yeah, thank you. And last is, you go on your own. As I like to say to our team, we want to look just crazy enough to do the last one so that we can attract some of these other partners.
I don't know if you should be sharing that on a podcast now.
It's out there now. It's too late. But the reality is that could be an option. Could be a regional launch.
You're basically taking the Trump Greenland strategy and applying it to Vail Scientific.
There you go. Yeah. Yes. I'll leave that one alone.
Great. Well, listen, the best of luck to you.
Thank you.
And thanks for coming on the podcast.
My pleasure. Thank you. Thanks for what you're doing.
Thanks, Tom.
All right. Be well.
For Leverage Storytelling, I'm Arick Wierson. We'll see you next time.